You are your child's first teacher.
Right.
How did your child learn to write their name? How did
Right.
they learn the colors? How did they count to 100 or 10 or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just because they turn 5 doesn't mean you don't know how to teach them
Right.
anymore. And in fact, I would say you are their best teacher because you know them the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know what motivates them, how to reach them, how to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think parents are the best teachers
Yes.
for their children.
Hi, I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association. Appreciate you joining us today. Today we're going to touch on a topic we hit a couple weeks ago with Julie Schwind, our office manager. We're going to talk about home education again because we've just started school this fall year, and I wanted to have Donna Rollins join us today, who's been a friend. And Donna, I've known you for at least 25 years.
I think
It's been
so.
a long time. Well, I remember I first met you and Matt when came by Indiana Family Institute and
Right.
made a memorable impression.
Oh, that's good.
So, but we've crossed paths because my family homeschools, and you're one of the leading homeschool people in Indiana with Wisdom Builders Homeschool Co-op. But before we talk about Wisdom Builders, I kind of wanted to maybe talk about a few things that I did with Julie, because I always find this interesting. Go back when you first began. Tell me how many kids you have, and what were your thoughts about home education? When did that start? What were you and your husband's thoughts at that time, if you can remember why you chose home education?
Okay, well, when I graduated from college, I moved here and I taught at Heritage Christian School.
Okay.
And while I was at Heritage, they had a homeschooling program. And homeschooled children would come into the classroom at various times during the year for different things. And so I got introduced to homeschooling through that. And then a number of kids joined my class later in the other years. Like I was a 5th grade teacher. So they would come in 5th grade. And I noticed they were so polite. They all seemed to really love the Lord. They had the best handwriting. They were good students. And I was very impressed by the homeschooling students that came into my classroom.
Okay.
So that kind of got it on my radar. But then when we decided, to start our family, we have 3 children, 3 boys. And then we put our first child in. And it was like, wow, this is a real sacrifice of money to put our child in a Christian school. And then when it came time to put my second child in, I thought, there's no way we can afford this. This is way more than our house payment.
Right.
And so my idea was, I'll take the first one home, put the second one in to get him a good start, and I'll try to start homeschooling. My other son, my firstborn. And so that got me on the journey. And so then when I thought about, okay, I'm going to take the second one home, put the other one back, maybe I was kind of thinking, how am I going to do this? My first one said, I don't want to go back. I love homeschooling.
Okay.
My second one needed to be homeschooled. He learned better one-on-one. And so God just kind of directed my path. You plan your way. I thought I'd always be at Heritage, maybe one day be principal there. But God directed me into the homeschooling world. And so then I investigated a lot of options that were out there.
So were you working at the time? Were you stay-at-home mom? Was this your primary?
I stayed home.
Okay.
Yes, and I wanted to stay home.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there for my children. I didn't want to they get the crumbs left over at the end of the day. I wanted to be fully present.
So you may have had more time to research curriculum. What did you do in the curriculum? Did you pull different things, or did you get a package, one thing start off with, or was it different per child? How did you go through that process?
Yes, I did kind of pull different things. But one thing I wanted to do, and I knew this as a teacher, I wanted Christian curriculum. Because I knew as a teacher, if I had to pull and bring in the Christian aspect into the curriculum, that takes way more time. It's not as convenient, and I knew I wouldn't be consistent doing it.
Right.
And I saw at Heritage how where they had the textbooks that had all this Christian stories in it. Like even when you had to find nouns and verbs in a language book, it would have the story of a famous missionary or something. So you were constantly being taught Christian worldview. And so that became very important to me. So as I looked, I did start with a certain company, but we have, branched off with others in that.
So you've homeschooled all 3 of your children?
Yes.
And still, you're still homeschooling one?
No, they're all done with homeschooling, all done with college, and I just keep going.
How did, let me ask you this. When they were getting to college age, this is something my wife and I struggled with. Both our kids are in college right now. We always felt like, for some reason, are we giving our kids a good enough education? And we did do the Iowa Standard Achievement Test.
Right.
But there was still kind of this, for whatever reason, kind of, are you educating your child as well as they could be elsewhere? And but what we found was the colleges were very interested in home educator children. They had no problem with the SAT, and they got in where they wanted to go. Was that an issue? Did your kids get to go where they wanted to go? Did you find any problems with that, or were you
no
pleased?
issues at all? In fact, exactly, as you talk about wisdom builders here in a few minutes, I, as a leader of a homeschool co-op, went to all these different colleges in Indiana. I went to Grace College, I went to Indiana Wesleyan, I went to IUPUI, I went to Ivy Tech, I went to many different colleges, and I showed them, this is our scope and sequence of what we're doing. This is our plan, and I went to Heritage Christian too. I asked them to look at it. I said, look at our plan, look at what we're doing. How can you tweak? Are we doing this well? And they said, yes, I love what you're doing. And I go, the textbooks I'm using, it looks great, And so then I asked, well, how do you know when you get a transcript from a homeschooler, or let's say a child from, a rural county or an inner city or a big city like Carmel or something like that. How do you know these transcripts are all equal? And they said, we don't know, and they're not equal. They said an A in biology in a rural county and an A in biology, let's say in Hamilton County, could be totally different A's. And I said, well, what's the equalizer? And how do you tell? And he said, it's the SAT and ACT.
Okay.
So he said, focus on that, make sure you do your due diligence in doing the broad range of all the subjects that you need to do, but make sure they learn. And it'll show up on the SAT if they actually learned it or not.
Now, I assume every child is different. One of the things about parenting that's wonderful is how God, you look at your spouse, you're like, how did we get this child and this child? They're so different. And they learn differently. Did you find yourself focusing maybe differently with different child in areas of emphasis where you could spend more time or less time on certain things?
Totally. And that's why doing the Iowa testing, which is what we offer every year, is incredibly important, because you might think your child knows something well. Oh, they got that. I don't have to worry about that. But the test results will show, did it stick? Did they really learn it? And so if your child, let's say they're in 5th grade, but they're reading at 8th grade, 9th grade level, and maybe math is right at grade level, a little below, so then I know I need to spend way more time on math next year and not as much on reading, because reading they're doing great. So the testing shows you where you need to put your efforts.
One of the things I hear from homeschool parents a lot that's an advantage is, as opposed to being in a classroom with 20 or 30 kids, you have to complete a section and wait for that 20th or 30th child to complete that section before you go on. And there's a term for it. I can't think of the term I hear, but once your child completes that, you can go on. You're not waiting for the others. And so there's a lot of, I think, time saved, or maybe better time used in home education.
Oh, definitely. I found with homeschooling my own children that we were always done before Dad came home, from work. And we didn't always start real early. And we took like a break at lunchtime. We used our time efficiently. And then our evenings were open where we could do sports, or we could do go to church at night, or do a ministry, or another activity. And so you weren't that pressure, homework, get to bed. It was like, no, it wasn't like that. And I think that's one of the beauties of homeschooling. You go your child's pace, but you don't move forward till they learn. The goal is learning, not just get through the book. The goal is learning.
One of the things I noticed with our family was that we chose to homeschool. My wife still worked part-time. And so there were weeks where we didn't do 5 days of school, but we did the 180 days, which meant we're teaching school in the summer too. And you don't have snow days at home. It's homeschool.
Right, exactly.
So we accomplished it in different ways, and that's one of the things we liked, was the flexibility that we could have. We still got it done, but it wasn't necessarily structured as much as and it worked out well for our family that way. So as a homeschool leader now, we'll get into that in a minute, talk about wisdom builders. Have you seen this diversity of how parents can mold home education in different ways and still accomplish? Oh,
definitely. In fact, most of them do more than 180 days. Most of them are doing things all summer long. They just have a desire of learning, and the parents have that desire too. I think to be a good teacher, you also have to be a good learner. And I see that in the parents a lot. So yes, a lot of diversity, I guess, in that.
Did you ever get to the point where, certainly we did, and I think every homeschool mom or dad gets to this, where they want to throw in the towel?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody.
Right.
You have to have patience. You have to be somewhat organized, and you have to think out of the box. And not everybody can think out of the box. Oh, it has to be this way. We have to have a classroom setting in our home. We have to, have all these things. And that's not the case. So if you can think out of the box and be a little creative, you can do it.
One of the things I've heard, and I asked Julie this in our interview, and it was an issue with her, but it was something my wife was concerned about, and I'm not trying to embarrass her because I've heard lots of moms say this. They'll say, I can't educate my child because it would ruin my relationship with them as a mom versus a teacher. We turned out we didn't find that. Our kids were able to see, I'm a teacher now, I'm a mom now.
Right.
Do you hear that concern, or is that just...
Sometimes, but I feel that also is a misnomer because you are your child's first teacher.
Right.
How did your child learn to write their name? How did they learn the colors? How did they count to 100 or 10 or whatever? It's like just because they turn 5 doesn't mean you don't know how to teach them anymore. And in fact, I would say you are their best teacher because you know them the best. You know what motivates them, how to reach them, how to teach them. So no, I think parents are the best teachers for their children. Now, as time goes on and things get a little harder, and that's why you can enlist aid and help. But still, I think that parents are key to a child's success.
Well, let's transition here. Since you've brought this up, when parents, I know that when we did kindergarten, we got through that in 20 to 40 minutes. We were kind of surprised what do kids do with half a day of full day kindergarten. We got through the curriculum pretty easy. Sometimes we do multiple days of kindergarten. But as you get into the higher grades and you get to something like an advanced science or math or a foreign language, then a parent often says, well, I need help. You are one of the key people in Central Indiana with leading a co-op, homeschool co-op. And I find there's a lot of these out there, and parents don't know about them. Yours is one of the better known, one of the larger. Tell us about Wisdom Builders. Why did you start it? And what does it do for families who get to that point?
Well, I started it 21 years ago, so I've been going 21 years strong. And I started it because when I decided to go into the homeschooling world, I started looking at a lot of the co-ops out there. And I wanted it to be a real quality time for my children. If I'm going to take time from my day and go to a co-op, it's got to be worth the time that I go there. And so I saw a lot of co-ops where moms were like forced to teach. It was your turn to teach, so you better teach. And I heard all these complaints from moms saying, I spend more time working for that class than I do in teaching my kids. Or I heard them saying, I like to teach one-on-one. I don't know what to do with a group of kids. And I felt these moms were totally getting stressed out by this. And then I thought, well, I have all these friends who are teachers who love teaching kids, And so that kind of got me thinking, and I started asking my friends, and they said we'd love to teach one day a week or a couple hours on one day a week. And I'm like, okay. So that kind of got me then started in it. And then I saw where the needs started presenting themselves to me. Like, for example, a big need I saw was in writing. A lot of the moms didn't feel really qualified in teaching their child how to write a good paragraph and then reports and that. And so by us having a writing teacher to assist in that, then the mom could do the proofreading and help during the week. It was a good collaboration. And so that got me thinking even more. Well, I wonder if there's more subjects like that where we could assist moms in teaching their subjects, but take some of the load off. And so science is another one. I saw lots of moms would be great reading through their textbook, but they skip all the experiments. And I thought, well, hey, we'll do all the experiments. We'll all do the same book. You just make sure the reading's done. You could test, but we work hand in hand through the materials.
So I appreciate that because it's not a replacement for the parent teaching.
No.
It's an assistance for the parents.
Yes. That's why I look at us more like a tutoring service where we do our part, but you do your part, but we're lightening the load so you don't get burned out. Plus, we also, give parents time off because otherwise it's 24/7. With your children, everybody would like to go grocery shopping without kids in the cart, or go out to dinner with your husband or lunch or a friend or just whatever, just to have some time off. And so that's something that we can provide too, where they know their children are being taught, but also loved and taught by a Christian, teacher, but also helping then the mom to hopefully she won't quit. Because I saw that too, where a lot of moms were getting burnt out and they were quitting teaching. Like, I just can't do it all. And no one can do it all. And so we do need help.
Now, let me ask you the big question that always comes up. We call it the S word, socialization. people think homeschoolers aren't socialized.
Mhm.
I've not seen that, but how do you address that if that's brought up to you?
I think that's something of the past, that maybe they
Mhm.
were more, just on the farm and they were homeschooled there and never really got out. But today, homeschooling is everywhere.
Yeah.
Homeschooling classes at the Children's Museum, at the Art
Right.
Museum. There's opportunities everywhere. You could go. Every library has like
Mhm.
homeschooling
Mhm.
Opportunities. And then the co-ops provide
Right.
a lot of chances to get together with kids and do projects together. Like we have a club serve, where kids get together and we come up with service projects, and they go out in the community and they serve in that way, because we have more time in the afternoons or in the evenings to do things. And so I don't see
Okay.
socialization as a problem.
So if somebody's watching this today and they're considering home education,
Hmm.
what Indiana is one of the better states for freedom
Mhm.
in home education.
Right.
But what is a parent required to do? What are the things that they need to know about state law?
Well, what I tell them, even maybe just go beyond a little bit,
Mhm.
just so you get all your ducks in a row, you need to track that you did the 180 days. So either you do it on a calendar, or you have a notebook, your computer, whatever, however you want to track it, that you're doing the 180 days of school. But I also say to have like your lesson plan
Uh-huh.
book, to have somehow to show, well, this is what we're doing, this is our plan, this is what we accomplished. Now, because I'm a leader of a group, I went even a step further. I kept a notebook for my children for every year of school, of what I would consider important assignments and work that they did, so
Yeah.
that if I was ever called in a question,
Right.
I could show what I've done. But here I am as a organizer of this program. No one ever called me, or
Yeah.
I never had
Yeah.
anyone come to my door. So it was just what I had just in case.
Yeah. So is testing required in Indiana?
No,
No,
it is not.
But you encourage it.
I
We've done
encourage
yeah.
it, because I think as the homeschooling mom and father, that knowledge is very
Yes.
important to help you.
Yeah. Let me ask you about something we were discussing in the office earlier, and this may throw you a curve, but I know
Okay.
you've done this for a long time. And this isn't really a homeschool co-op thing, but when your child graduates from high school, did you do career testing? Is that something you guys looked at for your child? For
We
your
do
son?
that as well.
Okay.
We've done some things like with the Larry Burkett Association, but lately we've just been doing the ASVAC
Oh, yeah,
testing,
sure.
which
Yeah.
is free.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of great information.
Mhm.
So we do that every year at the end of the year. And then like we're taking our kids to the job fair down at the fairs grounds in September. So when we see those kind of things, we try to take advantage of them when we can. But we definitely do the ASVAC testing every year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how big is Wisdom Builders? How big did it start? How big is it now? This might surprise people because I know it's
Right.
growing like crazy.
Right.
Tell us about the growth of that over.
Right. It has been kind of crazy. I started with like 30 kids when we started, and now we're close to 500.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
I was renting one church, now I'm renting 2 churches. I see the need is very great.
Mhm.
A lot of parents are wanting to homeschool. They can't afford the Christian school. I mean, most Christian schools are like $10,000 plus a year. And if you have a couple of children, I mean,
Right.
that's just very hard for many families to do. But homeschooling is a real option for them, but they're a little afraid
Mhm.
because they're like, I'm not qualified. And I'm thinking, yes, you are, but they don't think they are. But if they join a co-op like mine or others, they could get that help, that assistance, so that they can do it. I always say, if God calls you, He'll enable you.
Mhm.
It might not be perfect, but I think it'll be better than the alternative. And so that's how we got started. What was the other part of your question? I forgot.
I forgot too. I was thinking of the next question.
Okay.
Well, we'll move on.
Okay.
It'll come to me. One of the things I know you've looked at research. The research I've seen shows that home education kids typically do better than even private schools in a lot of
Right.
they test higher.
Yes.
Have you seen recent research? I know Brian Ray did that for years.
Yes, I have not looked at it recently, but I'm aware of it, and that's like when I've gone to talk to the colleges.
Yeah.
They've all been very like, yes, we want you.
Right.
The Army and Navy, they want them. Everybody's like wanting them because one thing about homeschoolers is that they have to learn to be self-motivated.
Mhm.
They have to be responsible. It's almost like they learn the college way of learning in high school.
Right.
And so they're usually pretty good students. And I got to get this done on this time. And they take initiative. And so I think maybe that's another reason why they're appealing, to
both my
the colleges.
kids have kind of said that college is almost easier because
Yes.
high school at homeschool is pretty hard, but they've got these skills going into it.
Yes, definitely. I've seen that.
Now, with Wisdom Builders, your homeschool co-op, did you see a change in your growth pre and post COVID? Did COVID play any role? Because we're hearing stories about more parents, once they saw what was going on in public schools, in particular with the Zoom classes and things, and they actually got to see the curriculum. Some parents are alarmed at what they're being taught.
Right.
And we're hearing about growth in home education. Are you seeing that?
I have. We had a steady growth until COVID. Then when COVID happened, we regressed because a lot of things shut down and we didn't have as many people. After COVID, it's been growing very, very exponentially. What do you call it?
Exponentially.
Exponentially, yes, thank you. And so the year before this August, I had over 330 families contact me about joining us. For that fall, for this fall, I've had 550 families contact me. And I don't have room for them. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing there's a great need. There's a lot of families out there that want an alternative, and it's hard to find.
Well, one of the things I've enjoyed about our family with homeschooling is that I don't send my kids on the bus in the morning. They don't come home 6, 8 hours later. I see them. And we haven't really felt like we've missed anything in their growth and development. And that's been a benefit you don't hear about, but it's priceless because I think their relationships are much stronger. And in terms of socialization, most of the kids most of the children my kids hang out with are either from church or their home education circles, and they're quality friends. And I'm not saying there aren't good kids in public school. Of course there are. There's solid Christian kids in public school. But we know all of them really well because of our interaction with the co-ops and other things. And so it's been a good experience for us. And Wisdom Builders has been just wonderful.
Well, I wanted to comment on that too. Just what you just said. One of the key reasons I think a family should homeschool is to disciple your children and hopefully lead them to Jesus Christ, and also the closeness of the family. I remember when I taught at Heritage, I felt like the kids were with me more than they were with their parents. I had them the better part of the day, and the parents just had the leftovers. The kids would go home, pressure, eat dinner, homework, bed. And I'm like, and maybe they had 20 minutes with dad, and here with homeschooling, like my kids would hug me every day. I mean, I have sons, and and say, "I love you, Mom." And now that they're older, they're all like having their houses close to us. They want us in their life where they see that we love them and care about them, and that they want to continue the strong family ties. And I think homeschooling had a lot to do with that.
Now I know. Ethan was recently married?
Yes. So we've been married about 2 years.
Okay, so I don't know if you've discussed this, but do you think he would choose homeschooling for his kids?
He's already talked about it.
Good.
That he wants his kids going to Wisdom Builders. Wonderful. And they bought their house 5 minutes from our house. Okay. And then Nathan just got married in July, and so they're close to. And I believe they all want to homeschool. Good. Yeah. Good. Well, I want to thank you for joining us and appreciate all the help. If you have questions about home education, you can contact us at the American Family Association or Donna at Wisdom Builders. You guys have a website, I would assume. Well, it's a private website, but it does have a way that you can ask questions, and then we can come back to you. Okay, great. What is the website? Wisdombuilders.net. Okay. Yeah, www.wisdombuilders.net. Well, thank you for joining us, and appreciate it. And hope you have a great weekend. I hope this was helpful. Share this with people who are homeschooling, who have just started or are considering it. And I think this will encourage them that it is possible and it can be done. It's extremely rewarding, and your children are your best investment. And I think this is something that you may want to consider. So I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.